There's a special kind of panic that only IDD leaders know. It's when one of your best people, the reliable, beloved rock star employee, sends you a text that says, "Hey, do you have a second?" And you already know, this is not a second. This is going to be a soul-searching, life-altering, program-juggling hour. And it might end with a resignation letter on your desk. Today, we're talking about what to do before that letter gets handed to you. Hi, Difference Maker, and welcome to IDD Leader, the podcast that's all about helping human service organizations retain and grow their workforce using behavioral science. I'm your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. In today's episode, we're going to cover how to tell who's worth trying to save, how to actually do it without sounding like a desperate ex, how to fix problems the right way, not just slap some band-aids on them, and why the ultimate move is proactively building an experience people don't want to leave. Well, let's start right away with this. Listen, if the person thinking about quitting has been late 17 times, they've called off 9 Mondays in a row, and their coworkers are throwing a party every time they don't show up to work, you need to do it like Elsa. Let it go. You need to let that person go. They should be on their way already. We often feel guilty because turnover is already painful, and so even though part of us probably already realizes that person is not a great fit, they're taking away as much from the team as they're adding, maybe even more, still sometimes it can be hard to let go. But it actually can be a blessing when we let someone go to free up the opportunity for a better person to come on the team, even if we're hurting because we're short-staffed. You can ask yourself this simple question. If I could replace this person overnight with somebody decent or somebody good, would I? If the answer is an easy yes or even a mostly yes, then you probably don't want to fight it. You can just let that person go. But then there's the rest of the people on your workforce. Let's work with this story. You probably have experienced something similar on your staff. Maria is a site manager. She's solid, organized, respected by staff and families. She oversees a community-based program, and she's been doing it for years. But lately, her staff have been pulled constantly to cover other sites, which have been especially short-staffed, which means she's short now. She's working coverage 3 to 4 days a week, taking individuals on outings, has to rearrange the groups at the last minute, practically every day. She sends out the outing schedule over the weekends, she catches up on her paperwork, and their case notes and everything on the evenings, and every single day, she never knows which staff or how many will get pulled into other locations. And right now, the burnout is showing. Maria's probably feeling resentful towards other site managers who chronically seem to be short-staffed. What are they doing over there anyway? When her director, James, got that, "Do you have a second?" text, he already knew. Maria was on the verge. So what do you do with staff who you don't want to lose? Well, let me put it to you this way. Don't try to be Mariah Carey and come along as a hero. Don't just make quick, empty promises, even if it's tempting. Seriously, I know that sinking feeling because I've been there before. When you're about to lose someone, or you really have that sense like, yeah, I think maybe I've pushed them too far, or the situation has gotten too intense. You're just thinking to yourself, please, don't go, please. But here's the thing. You can't fix what you don't fully understand yet. So a better move than just rushing in with quick promises would be just to set up a calm, private meeting and ask multiple open-ended questions like, what's been feeling heavy? What's been frustrating you lately? And then, depending on your demeanor, this could be the easy part or might not be so easy, but that is you have to stay quiet after you ask the questions and let it be awkward. Let them answer. So, in our example here, James invites Maria to lunch, off-site with no clipboard. And Maria opens up. She's exhausted. Her staff are burned out from floating constantly. She feels like other site managers aren't carrying their weight. And she's tired. She's angry. And she feels underappreciated. Most of all, and worst of all, she feels like she's failing her own staff and her own individuals, even though she's doing everything that she can. In the case with Maria, and probably in most cases, it's never just one thing. It's usually about an experience that's piled up without appropriate acknowledgement or support. So after you've had that heart to heart, or okay, that's a little dramatic, you've asked them what's really up, and you've given it the time and space it deserves. Here's a real crucial thing to do next. Create a reset moment. This is where you own it and you offer real change. This is not where you say, well, that's just the way it is, because that will send them packing their bags immediately. If the issue is real, and of course, in most instances, it is a real issue, here's how you can create this reset moment. First of all, acknowledge how hard it's been without any excuses. You can say things like, you're right, we should be handling that better. I'd like to reset. If you're open to it, let's build something better together. In those moments, it's so crucial to have no defensiveness, no finger pointing, and no HR bingo buzzwords. This is a lot easier said than done. It's easy for me to talk about it right here to you in this calm moment. It's not as easy when someone has just been going through it. And chances are, as their boss or their leader, you've been going through it too, because you're in the same ship together. But here's the thing. When you do this right, it can start to shift things immediately. In our story, James did not defend the situation. He did not make excuses. He acknowledged it. He says something along the lines of, yeah, when we opened up our new site in Eagleton, we really didn't even have enough staff to cover all our sites in Pawnee. And you and your staff are paying part of the price of that decision. That's on me. Then he did something next, which is our next step for trying to make things better. He asked, would you be open to helping us figure out a better system for ensuring coverage? That is, in fact, our next step, which is involve them in building the solution. When people help build the ship, they're much, much less likely to be poking holes in it. A lot of leaders, we are partially in the spots that we're in because we're good at taking action, getting stuff done. But this is a moment where it's best not to just do it ourselves or fix everything for them. We want to actually invite that person or those people into the solution. Here's one way you could ask. You could say, hey, if you could just push like a fix it button and change how coverage gets handled, what would it look like? Well, in our story, Maria suggested this. She suggested a coverage matrix where there's several established floaters. Maybe they even get paid a differential to be flexible in where they're going to go each and every day. And that way, fewer staff are getting pulled from site to site. She suggested a simple accountability tracker for how often staff are being pulled, and to help identify if there's anyone that really doesn't seem to know how to schedule their people properly, or is accepting way too many call-offs without communicating with their staff or getting buy-in. The last thing Maria suggested was monthly check-ins across site managers to share staffing pressures more transparently. And James was all for it. He said yes to piloting these solutions. That leads us to our next step. Over-communicate. To over-communicate, you want to think less normal communication and think more like Marvel dropping 30 Easter eggs in every new movie trailer. You want to kind of overdo it. What does that look like? Well, it would probably look like weekly one-to-one check-ins for 15 or 20 minutes with your Maria on your staff. It would also look like following up on every small step forward, sharing wins publicly, and just keep asking over and over again, is this helpful? Is this getting at the root issue? Are you feeling the relief that you need? What else do we need to be doing? Just keep asking questions and keep really listening. And then pivot, make adjustments along the way. So, James, he set up a recurring check in even when the initial chaos started to calm. I hope you caught that, because sometimes we just go to the squeaky wheel and then we move on. But he kept checking in regularly even after the chaos calmed. That was a good move, James. Good job. Every time a new tweak worked, he gave her credit at the leadership meeting. And over the next, well, it started in the first couple of weeks, but especially the next 2-3 months, Maria wasn't just staying, she was actually starting to re-engage at a whole new level. Now, before we go to the next step, I do think it's worth mentioning a couple common stuck spots and how to overcome them. Because if we're honest, even if we have the best intentions, we'll probably get stuck at some point. So here's what leaders like James, and probably somebody you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, how they get stuck and how to bust through it. One of the first stuck spots, and I might be guilty of this one sometimes, is defensive instinct. It could be anything from, we already have too much on our plate, or, wait, this coming from Maria? Because she's done X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is. But that defensiveness, it's a really natural kind of human response, but it's not a very healthy or helpful response. So the best way to overcome it is, well, first you got to notice that you're doing it, but then try to quickly just sort of push pause on the defensiveness and assume that some part of what they're bringing to you is true, maybe even a large part. One of the ways that's helped me overcome defensiveness is to start to ask myself right away, what am I contributing to this? So whatever the person's bringing at me, even if they're saying it in a way that sounds inflammatory, but what have I contributed to this? Or what am I contributing? That question has helped me a lot. Maybe it'll help you too. Stuck spot number 2 can be decision paralysis. Yeah, that's also been something that I've dealt with in the past. Like last week. No, I'm just kidding. Well, sort of. Okay. What if I can't fix everything? This is particularly true when there is that vicious cycle of high turnover, high vacancy, lots of overtime, everybody pulling a million different directions. It can easily feel like the boat has too many holes. We can't keep this thing afloat, or can barely keep it afloat. We're plugging every hole with every hand and leg that we have. But one of the best things we can do is to just do something. Fix one meaningful thing that will bring about some progress, and then celebrate that progress. Because in reality, we don't actually have to fix everything, and certainly not everything all at once. But we need to do something. So we just push right past that one. The third stuck spot, and the last one I'll talk about, is this fear of setting precedent. I don't know, have you ever been there? If I help Maria, won't everyone expect special treatment? But this is kind of a cover-up of just maybe trying to please people too much, because fair doesn't actually look like identical. Fair means being responsive to real situations as they arise. The person who's doing great on your team does not need quite as much attention as the person who's in crisis. Having said that, if we're only bouncing around from crisis to crisis, that's also another issue that probably needs to get addressed. But now I'm starting to get a little bit off topic, so we'll just bring it back to the matter at hand. Just don't be worried about setting a bad precedent when you know it's a moment that you have to give some special attention somewhere. All right. So what's the next step? It's to monitor and watch for progress. This could be like having a 30-day informal pulse. Is the employee more energized? Are things, is the tone more solutions focused? In other words, is the strategy starting to work? If it's not, and that can happen, then just start to revisit it and readjust it right away. Or there could be some occasional cases where you're just going to have to help transition that person out. Like they really were too far burned out, too far down that path, and they weren't willing or able to come back. even though you really didn't want to lose them. It happens. The last step is to be proactive in building an experience that good people want to stay in. The more that you can design your workplace for the right people to thrive, you're going to spend way less of your time begging them to stay. Some ways to be proactive would include these things. You can build small recognition rituals. This is shout outs at team meetings. This is simple reward systems. This is ways that people get recognized with some kind of peer recognition. I talk sometimes about having a monthly wins meeting. Can be just a simple meeting where we're celebrating wins, these kinds of things. Okay. Another thing you can do is foster mentoring relationships early. Often a critical time for people is when they're new in a position, especially if someone promotes to a level of leadership they've never been in before. So having a mentor will go a very long way to help with that. Regularly check the pulse, not just once a year, not just having your semi-annual and annual performance reviews. Check the pulse regularly. Talk about how things are going regularly. Then also, along the same lines, give real voice and real choice wherever you can. Well, let's wrap up Maria's story. 6 months into this, Maria is still in her role and she's thriving. Oh yeah. The new site managers were learning from her coverage tracker and matrix system, and James wasn't just reacting anymore. He was actually building forward momentum. Oh yeah. So let's review what we talked about this episode real quick. What were those steps again? Well, you want to first, number one, find out what's really bothering them. Number two, create a reset moment. This is where you own it and you offer real change. Number three, involve them in the solution. Number four, over-communicate. That's right, over-communicate. Step 5, monitor and watch for progress. And then step number 6, be proactive in building an experience that good people want to stay in. Listen, at the end of the day, retention is not about begging, even if we might feel that way sometimes. It's about building. Build something people are proud to belong to, and they'll stay with you through the hard days, not just the easy ones. If you resonated with this episode, action item. I almost forgot to say that. Your next step action item is, hopefully, if you are not driving, you could write down those 6 steps, but put it into practice right away. If you see someone's building up towards the verge of possibly quitting and you don't want to lose them, take those proactive steps right now. Okay, what I was going to say next. If you resonated with this episode, maybe you're ready to take a deeper look at questions that you need to answer in order to solve the turnover problem at your organization. If so, you can download my free top 10 questions and answers to help you solve DSP turnover. Just go to iddleader.com/top10. That's spelled out TOPTEN. And in the next little while, I'm kind of excited to share this, but I'll be dropping a new free download. So, in light of that, you might want to get this one before it becomes quite possibly obsolete. In fact, I've heard things like, this is the least helpful guide ever. It's the worst virus-laden download I've made in the past decade. But don't take my word for it. Go check it out for yourself. Or maybe you'll actually find it to be helpful. And in the free time that you probably don't have, would you please, and I mean this sincerely despite the sarcasm, would you please consider rating and reviewing this podcast? It helps other people like you find it. And if you're on YouTube, why don't you just comment on which of those steps is the hardest for you? Or the easiest, for that matter. All right. Until next time, difference maker, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.